Okay, what's up? So yesterday I posted a video on TikTok. I will put it here. Want free therapy? I think we'll make a scrying mirror today. PSA, I'm a shadow worker. I'm not concerned with your safety. What you see in the mirror is a direct reflection of you. Might creep you out a little bit. If you have questions, leave them here, but I might take it to YouTube to answer them. So make sure you're subscribed. Step 1, buy a sheet frame, some black acrylic paint or matte black spray paint. You'll need something to cleanse it with. I have witch spray. You can also use Florida water or soap and water, or any kind of smoke cleansing. I washed mine with soap and water because it was gross. Cleanse it. Paint it. If you're afraid of spirits coming through, use protection sigils in the paint on the first coat before it dries. Awaken your mirror, consecrate it. Meditate in the dark with a candle, look into it or hold it off to the side where your reflection isn't in it, and then journal immediately. That's it. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining me over here. I intentionally make my videos like this extremely vague so that it encourages people to go do their own research and to find their own path. I'm a left-hand path practitioner, and I don't want to force things like the way that I consecrate my objects on other people. Like, I want people to be able to find their own path, but I also just want to be able to pique the curiosity of people who are like, yo, what I believe is not working anymore. So I'm glad you're here. If you're here, that means that you've made it through the filter into like what extra can be taught or absorbed. And if you're here on my YouTube channel, then that means that you're probably ready for like the next step, or you're just naturally drawn to the darker side of things, if you will. I will say, like, I've been deeply immersed in many paths, and the left-hand path saved my life, my sanity, and I can talk about this much more in the future, but I will say that it's not all evil like people tend to make it out to be. The light is great, the dark is great, the in-between is great, and you know, we want to be somewhere right in between, unless you are bringing in a swift kick of consciousness from a polarity, then that's fine too. Everybody's path is valid. I don't care what path you walk. You're here for a reason, and even if it's just to learn something new or to get new perspective, that's cool. Whatever. Let's talk about the scrying mirror. So for scrying, there are two ways that I personally use scrying, and you'll hear me say like I personally this, or in my experience that, a lot, because reality is subjective, which means that people perceive things differently based on their set of ideas, beliefs, standards, values, traumas, memories, things like that. We all perceive things differently, so my experience isn't maybe going to be like the next person's experience, but it might resonate like to the core. So you might hear me say that a lot. I use scrying for psychological purposes and also spiritual contact. This video that I made on TikTok was specifically for psychological purposes, helping you to dive more into your shadows. And that's the one we're going to talk about today. So before we dive into a little bit more of the instructions on scrying, I'd like to cover two things that I felt were really important in that video. Number one is when I said to awaken the mirror, to consecrate it. I want you to research consecration. If you don't know what it is, it's important that you know what it is, because if you're just sprinkling some salt on something or putting some herbs on something or in something and calling it good, you're not doing anything. Consecration is important. Awakening the properties of the things and the materials that you're using is important. So definitely do your research. Like I said, I'm a left-hand practitioner. I don't want to go around telling people like, this is how you have to consecrate stuff. You can use archangels. You can use your spirit guides. You can use demons. You know, you can use gods, deities, entities of any kind. And it's not just for consecration. Like if you are just like purely animist, you could talk to the tools that you're using, whether it be organic materials or not. You can actually talk to them and put that intention, connect with it, and awaken the spirit of the object. So you don't need deities or entities of any kind. You can actually just work with the objects themselves. I hate to say objects themselves because that implies that they're just objects. I'm not trying to imply that. I just don't have a better word at this time. So yeah. The second thing I'd like to cover is somebody asked, do I have any sigils for protection that I would recommend? No. I don't. The one that I did recommend on the video was that a regular upright pentacle, which is the star with a circle around it, it banishes earthbound spirits, okay? So earth is down here. As you're going up, making the pentacle, it banishes earth up, okay? So if you don't want earthbound spirits coming and going through like your little portal that you're making, using a regular pentacle works really well for protection of all sorts, not just earthbound spirits, but that is something that has stuck with me since the moment I heard it, and I wish that I could recall the source where I heard it from, but I know I was talking about earthbound spirits and just nasty little parasites that we have lingering around us a lot. So or you can use, if you work with a deity or maybe you have a servitor or a spirit guide and you know what their symbol is or their sigil, you can use that. You can ask them to bless the mirror so that you only use it for, that you're only able to see like psychologically what's going on in your subconscious instead of allowing spirits to come through. And then also at the time of consecration, then you can also ask, if you're working with spirit of any kind, deity, entity of any kind, you can also ask them to protect the mirror itself. So if you have any questions about any of the things that I've just said, leave them in the comments. You know, maybe we'll touch on those a little bit more. I know whenever this account gets to 1,000 subscribers, then I can go live on my phone, which is so much easier for me than making a YouTube video, editing it, and all of that stuff. So there will be lots more live videos. And the reason I don't do the live or make the video on TikTok is because once it's done, it disappears. And this kind of information is information that I don't want to have to repeat over and over and over again, right? So I can just like guide people to a certain video. So there's that. So the reason I specifically don't draw protection sigils on my mirror, even though it's for psychological reasons in general, for me, it's because I'm not afraid of anything really coming through. And if it does come through, that's fine, because I banish and cleanse on the regular. And I also have multiple protections set up for all kinds of parasites and attacks and shit like that, all throughout my house. In my astral container, I have shit set up everywhere. Like if you didn't see my video where I did the spirit box that should be right under this video, there was like a handprint on my glass window, and like that was one of the first times that I was like, fuck yeah, like this shit's impenetrable, you know? So it just kind of locked it in. And I always really believed and knew my magic was like that, but it was just cool to see it, like how it couldn't get in. Like, I don't know. So my daughter's coming. Okay, so other than that, one more thing about using protection sigils. You can search online too. So if you search online for protection sigils or warding sigils or anything like that, banishing sigils, you'll come across like a whole horde of them. And most likely people have used these sigils before, and so they're already going to have magic attached to them. They're already going to have intention attached to them. Especially the creator, the person who created it, they probably charged it too, so it's already going to be working. The more people get their eyes on that, the more people are giving their energy to that, the more it's charged. So yeah, that's totally fine. Another reason I don't worry about putting protection sigil on my mirror is that, like, I've gotten to a point in my life and in my practice where if something's coming at me, I'm going to consume that shit. Like, I'm going to use that energy. I'm going to take it, I'm going to transmute it, and I'm going to use it. Like, it is what it is. Like, if we're playing in a dog-eat-dog world or whatever, like, I mean, I'm gonna use it to my benefit. And that comes with time. I think it comes with recognizing that there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, another video I did make about overcoming fear of working with spirits, which is on my TikTok, and I believe you can actually see the words overcoming fear of spirits or whatever on the TikTok, is that when you're afraid or whenever you're feeling fear, that's a really powerful energy that a lot of parasitic entities will feed off of. And if you're afraid while you're doing work like this, or like, that's why you see people like experiencing really crazy shit whenever they're working with a Ouija board, is because they're actually afraid of it and they don't have any fucking spiritual boundaries, and they don't know how to work with those energies. And like, I'm lucky because it comes pretty natural to me, and so all I had to do was just like release the fear, and that might be very well exactly all you have to do as well. But I'm just saying, like, proceed at your own caution. I will not be held responsible for what happens to you if you decide to do something and you're afraid while you're doing it, or you're too nervous and so you're like psyching yourself out and shit like that. It doesn't have to be that serious. Like, if you are doing scrying to see what's in your subconscious, let it just be about that. Let's put all the other crap, the fears aside, and just let it be about, like, yo, what's in my mind, what wants to come out, all right? So here are some steps that I would follow as you're beginning the process. So of course, at the end, I talked about consecrating it, awakening your mirror. So make sure that you do that so that it gives you even like a deeper access. It can communicate with you, and you can better direct the motivation behind the whole experience. So you're gonna want to go into your scrying session with a particular goal in mind, like an outcome that you want to reach. Maybe you have some question that you need answered. Maybe you want to find out about like some trauma, or you know, why you're holding on to this, or what is it that you're holding on to that's stopping you from this other thing, right? Take notes right now. I mean, like, take notes for this. If you write it out, you might understand it better, and you might even be tapping into something that might add to the instructions I'm giving you. You could get an idea. I want you to be able to write it down. So if you don't have paper right now, pause the video and write it down. Don't be afraid to pause while I'm talking and write down whatever's coming through to you right now. Trust yourself, okay? Trust yourself. So maybe pause the video and write down 5 to 10 different things that you would like to find out by scrying, okay? So not only does that show us that we have a real reason to want to scry, but it also gives us the motivation to actually do it, all right? So it'll give us the motivation to acquire the self-discipline required, which I will also talk about during this video, to become really good. Oh gosh, I have something in my eye. To become really good at scrying. This is like the 3rd time today, and I'm not even wearing like face makeup today except for like blush and a little concealer because I ran out of powder. And yeah, homegirl's looking rough today, but that's all right. I don't care about how I look. I do. Clearly. Whenever you are coming up with this goal in mind, all right, so before your session, have yourself a list of questions that you'd like to ask while you're in your trance state, all right? So you are going to get into a trance state whenever you're scrying, okay? Or before you scry. I made a video about this too, about how meditation is necessary, tapping into different brainwave states, like being able to get into trance and things like that. So you're gonna want to write out questions that you can just refer to with ease during your session, so you're not having to think about stuff or forget stuff or come out of the trance and be like, fuck, I was gonna ask this and I forgot to. You know, just have it there. Maybe you don't even use it. Maybe your intuition just guides you through the whole process, but it's always great to have it there so that you're not just going into it blind and not knowing what you're doing and not getting any results or seeing shit you don't want to see or that you're not ready to see. You need to be in the dark. And you can light one of these candles. That if you have candles, use that. If you don't have candles, that's fine, I guess. Just some like, you want your room dim, or the space that you're going to be scrying in, you want it dim. I highly suggest candles. So getting into trance, really great ways to do this are, I love using Nordic music, like Viking music, ambient, dark style. You could actually find it here on YouTube. It's like ambient, dark, Nordic or Viking music is what it's called. There's two really long ones that I like. And just find whatever works for you. Maybe you like actual trance. Maybe metal puts you in trance. Maybe like folk music or meditation music helps get you in trance. I need something with a beat to take me there, like instantly. Also working with different types of breath work, like G breath. I use box breath the most often. Anything that will drop me into a different state of mind, like with ease. I'm there for it. G-breath is something that you'll have to work on getting the rhythm down, so you're in through your mouth and out through your nose, in through your nose, out through your mouth kind of thing. So it requires a lot of focus on your breath. And then there's a Kundalini practice where you're sitting on your knees and your ankles, like you're like that. Okay, I don't know how to put it. Okay, so anyways, you're sitting like that, and then you put your hands on your knees and then you're just going. So research breath work. It will help. It will help so much. Don't be afraid to move with the music often. Movement gets me into trance too. You let go. You just surrender to the music. Just surrender to the breath. Just surrender to the dark and get yourself there, okay? So get into that trance state. You'll know when you're there, and if you don't get there really easy, keep trying. This might be something that you have to develop. Just don't give up, okay? Another tip that I have is to record your session, like with a camera or your phone or something. You can put it off on the other side of the room, forget about it, forget that it's there, even if it's super dark. Just make sure that it's within earshot in case you need to say something, okay? So the purpose of recording it is because maybe you don't remember something that you saw, but like, you know, you were speaking while you were in your trance. Like maybe you were talking to the mirror, right? Like you want to remember what that conversation sounded like, and you want to tap into it. Or maybe you're seeing stuff and you're not having a conversation, so you want to remember what you saw, so you're saying out loud what you're seeing, okay? So this way you can go back and you can record and document the things that you saw during the process. Another thing that you can do is have like a journal and pen there in case you want to try automatic writing. So you will wait until you feel the urge to pick up the pen and start writing, or you can hold the pen and then just put it to the paper and then wait for the urge to start writing to come. Maybe you're starting to see symbols, okay? So familiarizing yourself with different types of symbolism will help you to interpret some of the things. If your mind is like really shrouded in mystery, like it really doesn't want you to see what's in there, then you might have to go through symbolism, kind of like, you know, the way we have to interpret our dreams. You might have to interpret your gazing, and that's totally fine and cool. Let's see what else. So I will never ever tell you what you're gonna see. That's totally up to your intentions and your questions. If you want to share your experiences about what you saw, that's totally fine. But really try and be self-sufficient on this, okay? I believe in you. I believe that you have the ability to trust yourself and discern for yourself, which is another thing. Yeah, we'll talk about that sometime soon. Yeah. I can't know what you're gonna see, and so I'm not gonna pretend that I know what you're gonna see. What you see and what I see are gonna be totally different because we have different perceptions, we have different consciousness. And by consciousness, I mean like our in our body consciousness. We do share a collective consciousness, but your experiences of like your past lives, your traumas of this life, your traumas of then, your joys, your victories, your all of that stuff is all wrapped into like determining what you're going to experience, what you're going to see, and what your questions are, what answers you're looking for. You need to have a question if you want answers. Eventually that gap between like the question and the answer will start to like fade away, and you'll just have the question, and then you get the answer just right away, or like the answer will come in a form of a question and like you already know it now. It's like, it's weird. It's so hard to put into words sometimes, but yeah. Like, so if you go into your session unprepared with like no questions, that's on you, right? It could just add an extra dimension to your meditation. It could give you something to journal about later. I personally, if I want to journal after my meditation, like it's pretty easy for me because I'm very visual. I go off into like other worlds really easy. You know, I can remember stuff too from it, and it's amazing. And I journal right away, right after. But some people aren't really great at seeing those whole like long played out movie type things, like a movie scene or whatever. Yeah, some people just aren't like that great at it, and scrying could help that. So yeah, that's totally up to you. Do as thou wilt and all of that good stuff. So again, back to the symbols. When you're familiarizing yourself with these symbols, like when you remember these symbols and you're able to interpret it in a way that makes sense for you, after you've interpreted it for yourself, definitely like go research too and find out, like, does it mean any other things? Maybe it means something that you weren't thinking of before, and like that thing adds to what your intuition told you about it, or what you actually saw, or how you interpreted it. It could just like totally validate your whole experience and change the game for you, to where maybe you were like really believing it before you saw it, and then you saw it, but then you're like, I don't know, that was my imagination. It is, but also your imagination is fucking magic. Like, it's the key to magic. We are connected through time and space, so to speak, to this unlimited web of consciousness. It knows all and it remembers all. And by all, I mean lifetimes and lifetimes of everyone, people, places, things, right? Animals, minerals. Like, the extent of consciousness is so vast that we couldn't even begin to understand it if we tried. And you have access to that. All of your past lives, you have access to that. You have access to my past lives. Everybody's, right? It's really kind of rude to like go exploring other people's shit, but you know, like, you do have access to it. And the amount of access that you have is totally dependent on the amount of self-discipline you're willing to have in your own practice and growing yourself in your craft. Whether that means growing yourself in witchcraft or occultism, or just spirituality in general, or just trying to be a better human, right? So like, self-discipline is one of the most important things for any path, because if you can't discipline yourself to be in integrity with your values, to make sure that you're doing the things that the person that you're reaching to be, or like become, is already doing, things that maybe you're not doing right now, and you know that you should be, because that's the kind of things that the person you want to be is doing, which is a huge key to manifesting the life that you desire too, is by doing the things that the person you want to be is already doing. That doesn't mean look outside of you to a person, but it's like, imagine yourself in like 6 years or 6 months. Like, the person that you imagine is doing something different if they have a result that you don't have. So what is that different thing? And then dedicating yourself to doing it. That's a self-discipline, and that's a skill that we have to develop for ourselves. So this does typically mean to practice your practice daily, okay? So like meditation, grounding, centering yourself, practicing gratitude, all the like real basic stuff. But it also is like building your energy bodies and like building your life force energy, learning how to store it and restore it. Like these are all really important to develop your practice. You can do research really easy on any of these topics, right? You just type it into Google or type it into YouTube and it's there. Or you can ask me, maybe you want my take on it or my perspective. Maybe you've done the research and you just want somebody's perspective directly that you can actually have conversation with. That's fine. Ask me your questions and I'll do my very, very best to answer them. I might be going live on TikTok sometimes just to like, you know, be able to answer questions there too. But like I said, I don't like that it disappears. So maybe there's a workaround for that. I'm not totally sure. So whatever you do while you're developing this practice of self-discipline, just remember to find a rhythm that works for you. Self-mastery is such a beautiful thing. Emotional mastery, like, gosh, I remember not that long ago, just a fucking, like, just this past year was the first time that I didn't have seasonal depression, you know. The last 3 years before that was, you know, period of 3 months where we get seasonal depression, and then the years before that it was just total depression. So it's gotten incrementally better, but I'm 100% positive that the reason I didn't get seasonal depression is because I am developing self-mastery that I haven't been able to access before, because I'm more open and willing to look at the aspects of myself that I wasn't willing to look at then, or wasn't ready to look at then. Even though I was doing shadow work through a lot of that time, it wasn't as deep and I wasn't on the left-hand path. I'm telling you, whenever I say like the left-hand path saved my life, it means it gave me a life. And I finally do feel liberated, like emotionally liberated. And that is one of my highest prerogatives, to be able to live my life free and to be able to share it with others. And so that's why I do want to educate others, or even open people's minds to be able to go out and research some of these things, is because I want to share this experience with people. You know, what's the point of getting to have such a fucking amazing life and sense of purpose if you don't get to share it with anybody? If nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about, or if they don't understand, like, how are you so happy after all the shit you've gone through? Or like, how are you able to react in this kind of way? Because it hasn't always been that way. There's just no point in keeping it to yourself, right? And one of the best offerings that we can give the universe is gratitude, right? And by me sharing my knowledge is me expressing gratitude for the gifts that I've been given, and for the entities that I work with, right? Like, Belial has fucking done incredible shit for me. Like, incredible. Hecate, amazing. Lilith, fucking amazing. And like, there's so many entities and guides and deities that you can work with and that you can seek out, and you can do path workings with them. Even if like you needed to work with one to release your fear, you could do that. Like, get really good at asking questions. Maybe you ask, you know, which deity wants to work with me. Find the rhythm and the beings that want to work with you so that you can handle the emotional alchemy that will take place through your scrying experiences, your sessions, your meditations, your shadow work. And speaking of shadow work, that's what we're going to be talking about next time. So thanks for subscribing. Yes, I guess that's it. Thanks for being here. Bye.